Welcome to this edition of Head to Head. I'm your host, Cam McKinney, and this is episode number 350 of the podcast. And on this episode, I'm talking about the Dallas Mavericks trading Luka Doncic to the Los Angeles Lakers in one of the most surprising moves in NBA history. The Dallas Mavericks, a little bit more than half a season after making the NBA Finals, have traded away Luka Doncic to the Lakers. Let's start with the details of this free team trade. The Lakers get Doncic, Maxi Kleber, and Markieff Morris. Dallas gets star big man Anthony Davis, Max Christie, and a 2029 first-round pick. The Jazz get Jalen Hood-Schifino and 2 second-round picks. The reaction to this trade has been about how this is a massive blunder by the Dallas Mavericks, and we are all asking the question, why? Why trade away a player who just led you to the NBA Finals, who is one of the best offensive players in the game? And I understand he's not good defensively. Neither was Allen Iverson, neither is James Harden, but these teams accepted that fact because they were and are all-world offensive players. I understand the desire to have a two-way superstar, but in the case of Luka, surround him with the defensive players and he'll make magic happen on the other end. Yes, I'm interested in the Lakers getting yet another star who falls in their laps, but I'm way more interested in the Mavericks rejecting Luka. It's crazy like a trade like this can happen in the NBA, where the league is perceived to be run by its players and that they will put up with anything to keep a star happy. The way I view this trade is the Mavericks trying to take back their team. It's in a way what the Heat just did with Jimmy Butler, who just got traded to Golden State. The problem is getting rid of players who have led your teams to the NBA Finals is a risky proposition. The difference between both situations is the age of the players. Jimmy Butler is in his 30s, so most people are siding with the Heat, and that also has to do with Butler's antics on and off the court. Luka is a 25-year-old who's made NBA first team 5 years in a row. He's on another level than Butler. I just think both are examples of teams that obviously didn't want to run through one star anymore. This is not the first questionable move in the history of the Dallas Mavericks. They once traded Hall of Fame guard and now Mavericks head coach Jason Kidd after his third season, and they also let Steve Nash walk to the Phoenix Suns before he became a two-time NBA MVP, and more recently let star guard Jalen Brunson sign with the Knicks. Now, in the case of those three, you could at least say they couldn't yet see the potential of those three. With Luka, they saw what he was capable of, which includes leading a team to the NBA Finals, which I didn't think had a super talented roster. The Mavericks had everything going for them. They had just lost franchise icon Dirk Nowitzki, and in comes Luka to take the mantle. And one thing that's weird to me is this idea that they are trading Luka because he's missing games, and their answer to that is to trade for Anthony Davis, who misses even more games than him. I like Anthony Davis as a player. He's a future Hall of Famer, but he's not someone I want to be my team's best player, and the same goes for Kyrie Irving. They are great talents who have won because they played with LeBron. Luka brought a team to the NBA Finals as the main star. So the few people in favor of this trade have talked about the short term and what this means for the short term of the Dallas Mavericks. Oh, they could make a run in the playoffs because now they have Anthony Davis and pairing him with Kyrie Irving and Klay Thompson. And those are three players who we already know what they are as basketball players. You do not know what Luka could become later down the line. I don't think we've seen the best of Luka Doncic yet. You can't say that for Anthony Davis. You know what he is as a basketball player. Offensively, I think he's flawed. I like his game. I don't think he's as good of a three-point shooter as I thought he was going to be. And I get it. Logically, you can say that Anthony Davis is going to lead the Mavericks defensively and Kyrie Irving is going to lead them offensively. But what exactly is this short-term success the Dallas Mavericks are now chasing? So what if you get back to the Western Conference Finals and get swept by OKC? This doesn't make up for this trade. trade. It just doesn't. I don't even care if you go back to the NBA Finals and lose. Giving up on a 25-year-old superstar is an unforgivable act. I am also of the belief that it is not a given that the Mavericks will end up being better than the Lakers. This season, right now, the Lakers have the two best players of the two teams, and there used to be a time where all LeBron needed to do to make the NBA Finals was make the playoffs, and adding Luka might make it that time again. And if you don't mind, I would like to rant against this idea that Luka is not an ideal player to pair with LeBron James. They are too similar. They are both ball dominant. They tried to say that about LeBron and D Wade. They said that about Tatum and Brown. It's about their talent, and I believe they can make it work. Luka is going to be motivated to play some of the best basketball of his life down the stretch. In the NBA, we are so used to players rejecting franchises. I mean, Kevin Durant rejected the Nets, and then he goes to Phoenix. But we're not used to seeing teams reject superstars, and there's a reason for that. There's no reason to reject Luka. I don't know if he wanted to sign in Dallas long term, but you don't just trade him away out of nowhere. And yes, it's ridiculous that the Mavericks only got one first-round pick for Luka Doncic. I think we're all 99.9% sure that the Mavericks are wrong with this trade. Yes, is there that 0.1% chance that they are right about Luka and that he's not as good as we all think he is? Yes, that could be the case. But let us see that before you trade him away. Like, this just doesn't make any sense for this team moving forward. I also laugh at this idea that they didn't make him available to all the other teams because they didn't want the distraction. Well, what's a bigger distraction than trading away Luka Doncic out of nowhere? I mean, nobody cares about the Mavericks as a basketball team moving forward this season. Like I just said, I don't even care if they have postseason success. All I'm interested in talking about is why you traded away the future face of the league. Let's get into some of the reasoning of this trade. I mean, here's what Mavs GM Nico Harrison told ESPN about the trade. Quote, "I believe defense wins championships. I believe that getting an all-defensive center and an all-NBA player with a defensive mindset gets us a better chance. We're built to win now and in the future." I love the sentiment about what he's saying about defense. I more so believe in this idea of talent and star power. Throughout the history of the NBA, it's those players winning at the highest level. Yes, Luka should try to improve defensively, but to make it the reason you're giving up on him right now, I'll just never get behind. I think the Dallas Mavericks are worse right now, and I think they will be worse in the long run as well. The other thing that's so insane about this is that it's coming from the Dallas Mavericks, who once had the model of how to have success with a superstar. They had Dirk. They had him each and every year. They would go through the ups and downs, but they would win 50 to 60 regular season games a year. They would make a deep run in the playoffs, and eventually they got rewarded by winning an NBA championship. That's how the Dallas Mavericks should build their basketball team, and that's what they should have done with Luka. Keep Luka around as long as he wants to be there. The Mavericks treated Dirk Nowitzki like he was their entire organization, and they should have done the exact same thing with Luka. Luka is the Mavs until he doesn't want to be. I'll speak as a fan for the next few minutes. Like, as a fan of the NBA and as a fan of these players, I don't want my team to be out here rejecting superstars. Like, I know that the relationship between Jason Tatum and the Boston Celtics might end someday, but I want that to be Jason Tatum being the one who ends that relationship. I don't want to see the Celtics reject Jason Tatum, because I think they would be stupid if they were the ones who rejected Jason Tatum. It's like when the Orlando Magic traded away Dwight Howard. They didn't want to do that. They were forced to do that because Dwight Howard no longer wanted to be with the Orlando Magic. Fair or not fair, that's how these superstars should be traded away, only if they want to be. And in the case of Luka, I've been given no evidence to suggest that he wanted to be traded away to the Lakers. It's like, why make yourselves the villains in the face of the fans? I mean, you're the ones who are still going to have to deal with them. Dallas Mavericks fans are now mad at the Dallas Mavericks instead of being mad at Luka Doncic. We all know the world that we live in. given that when a trade like this goes down, the hot takes come in fast, and here's one from ESPN NBA analyst Kendrick Perkins, who tweeted this about the trade, quote, "Dallas won in this trade. AD and Kyrie are going to be special, plus they didn't have to give up Lively, Gafford, or PJ Washington. God bless America." End quote. Look, I like when people have differing opinions if I think they are coming from an honest place. However, I have a problem when I think the opposite opinion is all for attention-seeking purposes, which this opinion clearly is. And it's like this: if he's right, he'll say on TV he's great, but if he's wrong, he'll never mention the trade again. Sometimes the prevailing sentiment is the right one. Being different for different sakes is just flat out annoying. In sports, I have a belief that you do not give up on somebody who is entering their prime, and Luka has already shown his amazing talents at 25 years old, but his prime is, let's say, 27 to 32. Think about how good at basketball Luka has the capabilities of being at that age. I don't give up on players before they turn 30 years old, and I definitely don't give up on superstar players who are 25 years old who have already led me to the NBA Finals and another appearance in the Western Conference Finals. It's almost like what the Dallas Mavericks are telling us is they think they made it to the NBA Finals despite Luka Doncic. I know there are some people who watch the NBA and say that the players have too much power, but I think this is an example of Luka clearly didn't have enough power on the Dallas Mavericks to not make this trade happen, that the GM, Nico Harrison, was thought of way more highly than the star 25-year-old. Now I'll talk about the Lakers for a little bit because I do think they deserve some credit here, because this is the first move that they've made that is a post-LeBron decision. Like, Luka is going to be the face of the Lakers after LeBron retires. They knew deep down there's no way we can exist as a basketball organization if Anthony Davis ever becomes the face of the team. It's just not going to work out. We have this young head coach in JJ Redick who's having early success. Let's give him this franchise piece that's going to be here for the long haul. That's what the Lakers are building. They are building towards the long term, which I think is something more important to do than to focus on the short term. I'll use the Celtics as an example because for years and years, people were saying to break up Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, trade Jaylen Brown for Kevin Durant, trade him for Kawhi Leonard, trade him for Jimmy Butler, trade him for you name it. But instead of doing that and maybe having short-term success, the Celtics said, no, our long-term future is going to be about the growth and development of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown as a star duo. I think way too many people are buying into the Dallas Mavericks short-term plans. I've heard many people say they're now the second best team in the Western Conference. It's like, hold your horses. You know which team from Texas made a way better trade? The San Antonio Spurs, who just paired their all-world center in Victor Wembanyama with a star point guard in De'Aaron Fox. That's the type of trade the Dallas Mavericks should have been trying to do, was to pair Luka with an even better star than Kyrie Irving. See, that trade of De'Aaron Fox does two things. It makes the Spurs better in the moment, but it also makes you hopeful for the future of that team. And I know the Mavericks want to avoid it, but let's talk about the long term for a minute. Which superstar player is now ever going to want to sign long term with the Dallas Mavericks? Because if I play like that and lead you to the NBA Finals, you might just trade me away. It's going to be a long time before a superstar player trusts the Dallas Mavericks as an organization, which is wild because I viewed them as one of the most steady teams in the league. Like, they had Mark Cuban as an owner, they had Dirk, they won 50 games every year. Yes, they went through some ups and downs, but they were a consistent organization. And now I think they're in complete and utter chaos, and I don't know why. So there were some negative backlash towards Luka after last year's NBA Finals when the team really didn't compete with the Boston Celtics. There were a lot of murmurs about how he's a bad defender, but nobody in their right mind was like, you know what the problem with with the Mavericks is Luka Doncic. And also, I think a lot of that criticism had to do with the fact that a lot of people think very highly of Luka, that if he just got a little bit better on that end of the floor, he would be the face of the league. I think in the coming months and years, we'll realize what this trade was really all about. Maybe the Mavericks just did not want to pay somebody the Supermax extension. I think it has to do with Nico Harrison wants to be the face of this organization. He wants it to be more of a team. He wants to be like Pat Riley with the Miami Heat. He wants an organization. He doesn't want one guy being the face of everything. I think that's what this is about, which is crazy because he's in a league where it's all about one player. The Denver Nuggets are great right now because they have Nikola Jokic. I mean, that's what the league is. The Warriors were great because they had Steph Curry. The Bulls were great because they had Michael Jordan. The Lakers were great because they had Magic Johnson. I mean, I could keep going on. It's always been about one player. So for you to get rid of your one player, it's not risky, it's not bold, it's just flat out dumb. I do get kind of annoyed when I hear people say that people care more about these kinds of trades than they do about the actual basketball on the court. I don't think that's the case. I think people want to see if this experiment between LeBron and Luka is going to work out. As you can tell, I think it's going to work out. Why wouldn't it work out? These are two of the best basketball players I've ever seen on the court together. I think they'll make it work. And I'm not on Team Luka because he's an all-world talent. I believe in going with athletes that are motivated, and Luka is going to be hell-bent on proving the Dallas Mavericks wrong. I hope, and I think we all should hope, that the Lakers face the Mavericks during the NBA playoffs. That's a series of basketball I desperately want to see. I want to see Luka get revenge against his former team. At the end of the day, there's no justifiable reason as to why the Mavericks traded away Luka Doncic. At least in the case of Jimmy Butler had a reason to want to leave the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat did not want to give Jimmy Butler money, so there was a logistical reason as to why Jimmy Butler was unhappy with the Miami Heat. I think Jimmy Butler would still be on the Miami Heat if they gave him a contract. You knew what Jimmy Butler wanted, and when he got traded to the Warriors, he eventually got that. An organization like the Mavericks, on the other hand, are supposed to act logically, and this doesn't feel like a logical decision. It feels like an emotional one. That this GM wants to prove that he can put a winning basketball team together that doesn't include Luka Doncic. I want to end the podcast on this note. It is beyond crazy that Trae Young is still on the Atlanta Hawks, and it's Luka who is no longer on the Dallas Mavericks. These two are forever linked due to that draft night trade, and year after year after year, we have talked about Trae Young getting traded away to another team. I thought that Trae Young would eventually make his way onto the San Antonio Spurs. I thought Trae Young could make his way on to the LA Lakers. We all thought Trae Young was destined to be moved. No one even thought it was possible that Luka would be the one who was traded first. I'm a fan of both of them on the court, but Luka is a better player than Trae Young. I mean, Trae Young has led the Hawks to an Eastern Conference Finals, but Luka just made it to the NBA Finals, and it doesn't seem like he was unhappy in Dallas. He was likely willing to sign that super extension to remain a member of the Dallas Mavericks. And I don't know if this is a good trade for the NBA. Are trades like this good? Yes, the Lakers get another star, and it's almost like, haven't the Lakers had enough superstars? They've had Magic, they've had Shaq, they've had Kobe, they've had LeBron, they've had Anthony Davis. Now we trade away Anthony Davis and we bring in his replacement in Luka. It's just crazy that the Lakers keep getting another superstar. Meanwhile, the Dallas Mavericks are just here rejecting the idea that anyone in the NBA should be treated like a superstar. I mean, that's what it feels like they are doing with this trade, that they are just rejecting the concept. Oh, no player is bigger than our team. And it's like, look at the entire history of the NBA. Every superstar player has been treated like he's bigger than the team he's on. And your organization had great success treating a player in Dirk Nowitzki like he was bigger than everyone else. I'm a Celtics fan, so I shouldn't be rooting for the Lakers and their success in the future, but I am rooting for Luka Doncic as a basketball player because I like watching him play basketball and I think he's uber talented. I'm not going to side with an organization because they haven't given me a good reason to. Luka has given me reasons to believe in him. The best of Luka Doncic as a basketball player is still yet to come, which is why the Mavs deserve all the criticism they are getting for this trade. Thanks for listening to this edition of Head to Head. There'll be a new episode of the podcast every Monday on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, so please rate, review, and subscribe.